sound so underwhelmed.
I'm very tired and hot, so I will be in great spirits.
Just gotta switch it on.
Here we go.
I can lead you astray, straight to hell if you like. Give me a big black box and I can open your eyes. Are we keeping it real? Are we keeping it tight? Are we all just victims of our infinite life?
Welcome back to EnterTheRealWorld.com. This is There Will Be Movies, 25 of our favourite movies from a given decade. This is Volume 1, so we are dealing with 2000 to 2009. My name is Matt Waters. I am joined, as always, by Ben Phillips. Ben, are you ready to talk about gay cowboys?
I am ready to talk about maybe gay cowboys.
Well, yeah, there's... As I was wrapping up my notes, I was like, I'll just take a glance at, like, the controversies and the critical takes, and then I was like, nope, can't do it. It's a rough scene out there. The mentality of you are either straight or gay is very prevalent.
I mean, this is possibly me putting my own personal biases onto this, but I would read them as bisexual.
I think there's no way you couldn't. And, like, even if Jack leans more on the male end, he's still...
Well, that's the thing is, like, to get it out of the way, like, Jack is obviously, like, more gay than straight, and Ennis is more straight than gay, but
Jack is the love of his life.
But Jack is the love of his life, and it's that very complicated thing. And I also think it kind of gets regressive to kind of put labels on what it is.
Yes.
Yes. Because obviously this is a movie that features sex between both men and women, and
sure does.
At no point does it imply that either Jack or Ennis are not enjoying the sex with the women.
No.
The only time. We'll
get to it. We'll get to it.
I mean, there is the fight that him and Alma have during one of their sex, but that is not because of the sex. It is because of something.
We didn't even actually fucking say. This is episode 11, Brokeback Mountain. If you didn't guess from the whole gay cowboy bit, which it was infamously referred to as for the entirety of its like press cycle, people just called it the gay cowboy movie, which
it's so reductive.
Nothing about this has aged well. The movie has aged terrifically well. Everything surrounding it, like reviews and all of that sort of stuff, have not aged too well, and like discourse is more what I mean, not reviews, because obviously it's incredibly well reviewed. But just a lot of reductive thinking in terms of erasing the idea of bisexuality and like just slapping labels on things, and I think there was some outlet said everyone calls it the gay cowboy movie until they actually see it, and I think that's the thing. It took on such a huge cultural, like, it was a meme. We talk about memes as like an image or a video on the internet, but in terms of the actual meaning of that word meme, of like this collective shared idea or whatever, like it was very much in the zeitgeist, and like there were just jokes left, right and centre, parodies, and it
I mean, like, the shaking tent. Yes. The shaking tent is the image that I always think of, and I don't know how to quit you, and it's just all these lines that become, like, even if people hadn't seen it, they become mimetic.
I was going to say, I feel a lot of people faked that they'd seen it and like spoke on it as if they had, but they clearly hadn't, and stuff like that.
Oh yes, it's wall to wall sex. It's like, it's really not. There's really plum sexing between them.
There's more straight sex in this movie than there is gay sex, and like I feel that even got like some criticism that it's like it's straight baiting or whatever. But
I mean, that was actually a thing where like Anne Hathaway went on a talk show and said, like, come see this movie, I got my boobs out, and it's like, oh, please tell me like a publicist didn't come to you and say, we need to get the straights into the cinema.
I mean, potentially. I mean, you see more boobs than you do penises, and some lucky paparazzi saw Heath Ledger's penis, but no.
Penises you see are from the distance as they jump off a cliff.
Yes, and one of those is not even Jake Gyllenhaal. He's a coward. Heath Ledger doesn't give a shit because he's Australian. Who gives a fuck? So this is down as your selection, which I immediately now just feel homophobic. It's because I would say I watched this movie for the first time. It was part of our syllabus at university, and I don't think I was emotionally equipped to get as much out of this movie as I am now as a fake woke adult. No, I feel I'm a rounded person. So I reflect far more kindly on it now than I did when I first saw it, and a lot of these picks that I've made are largely based on like my kind of emotional connection to them, and I sort of didn't have that with this movie for a long time. So while I respect the fuck out of it as an excellent piece of filmmaking and acting and just incredibly important as a sort of watershed moment for film and like representation, it still it doesn't have that like instinctive like, oh, I have to put that down. But for you, very much so, because this is down as your selection.
I mean, yeah, it's my selection for, I mean, a mix of like, this movie is just really fucking good.
Yeah.
Personal reasons.
All right, an exclusive on the podcast here.
Exclusive. No, yeah, I mean, like, as someone who identifies as bisexual, like, this movie feels so much more real in a lot of ways than, like, a lot of gay movies. It feels like between this and, like, Call Me By Your Name, like, there's not a lot of movies that feel like they actually kind of get to the heart of this kind of experience.
Yeah.
And it's just a weird one. Like, I think there's moments in this movie which don't ring true. Like, the first time they have sex, it feels very much like they go from, like, 0 to 60. You're like, this is progressing. This is progressing very quickly.
Fuck 60. We left 60 in the rear view. They go 0 to 1,000, man. He spits in his fucking hand.
It's like, I mean, obviously the implication there is that Jack has done this before, because the way that Jack goes about it is like, I am ready for this. It's like, okay.
This is what we do up there,
I mean, like, it's that very weird thing. I can't think of any other, like, movies that deal with homosexuality or bisexuality or anything like that actually stand up. It's like Bound. Bound is still really good, but that's written by 2 trans women. The history of LGBT cinema, like, kind of becomes this kind of, like, very camp, very reductive thing, whereas this is so much more human and so much more humanizing than an awful lot of kind of those other kind of movies that feature queer relationships.
Austin Walker, who writes for Vice and Waypoint on it, he was talking about representation and how there's this idea that you bite people's hands off for some sort of flawed representation because otherwise you will starve. And I thought that was like a really poignant way of putting it, because it's not that there are no good movies about sexuality and stuff, it's just that like you're sort of grasping for ones that are this recognized and big, and I don't want to be reductive with how I'm talking about this, but you know, like, this feels so much more important than almost anything that had come before it, and it's thank goodness this exists. Like, that's what I guess I'm striving at there. But
you've obviously got movies like, I mean, you can argue stuff like, does Mrs. Doubtfire deal with drag personas particularly well, or like Priscilla, Queen of the Desert and stuff like that, and it kind of like centers it on different things. But really, like, there's a few movies in the 2000s that actually feel like they're made with actual queer voices in them. And the thing that's really weird about this movie is mostly made by straight people.
Yep.
Like, Ang Lee is straight,
to the point that one of the fucking writers, I mean, you can connect some dots and read between some lines, but I feel the male writer wasn't all that comfortable with writing. Larry McMurtry and Diana Asano co-wrote it, and McMurtry had to essentially be browbeaten into even reading the story because he hates short fiction or whatever. And then when they actually wrote it together, he handled like the marriages and the Western stuff, and then he left the entire romance to Osana. And there are conflicting reports about Ang Lee essentially not letting McMurtry on the set while Osana was there for every single day of filming, and it's like, it may all be not what I'm thinking, but my instinct is he wasn't all that comfortable writing the gay cowboy movie. I
mean, like, Diana Osana is a credited producer on the movie. She's the one who fought really hard to adapt this book, isn't she? Like, yes. She's the one who read the Annie Proulx article and was a short story and was just like, I need to make this a movie. Yeah. And if she is the one who wrote the relationship stuff, she had the technically easier job, because I read the short story this morning. It's a beautiful piece of prose, but so much of it was adapted into the movie. Like, it's pretty, like, a lot of it's beat for beat. There's one notable thing they cut, which is this weird implication at the back end of the story that Jack's homosexuality comes from a history of childhood trauma.
Oh, good.
They tell a story of like Jack saying that his circumcision had gone badly and he was like peeing all over the seat, so his dad comes in, beats him up, and then pisses on him.
Oh, good.
And like like Jack kind of like phrases it in terms of being like, me and my father had different penises, therefore I knew that I would never be whole in his eyes. And it feels like this really weird late in the story thing to introduce, and it starts this implication that like, oh, it's this abuse that's caused him to be this way, which the rest of the book is so beautifully done, and so much of what is in the movie is in that text, but it's the one solid piece of information on Jack we get, because almost everything in this movie with Jack, like when he's off on his own, is entirely from the point of view, like entirely created for this movie pretty much, but they don't include that one little bit of backstory.
The author said that she was stunned at how much of her work made it onto screen, and she even went as far as to say she might be the first American writer to see the entirety of their book or short story or whatever make its way onto a screen, because most books do get heavily chopped and edited and changed to become a more pleasing, publicly available narrative, if we put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, this is an expansion on her. I mean, it's only 52 pages, something like that. It's a short read, but it does expand quite a lot on there's a lot more stuff on Brokeback Mountain. They change some stuff, because obviously in the film they always go back to Brokeback Mountain, but in the short story they go to different places. They go anywhere but Brokeback Mountain is the idea behind it.
Yeah, and that's where it all started, and that's why it's so then it's he almost wants to go back there for the first time rather than... Anyway.
But we're leaping into this. We haven't done any context.
I know. Well, and again, we skipped over, directed by Ang Lee. Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon would, of course, have been in heavy consideration for the list, but I think this beats it out.
They're two of the best movies of this decade, Crouching Tiger and Brokeback Mountain. And I put Brokeback on my list for reasons.
One movie per director, so it would be great to have them both, but we have this one. Unfortunately, Hulk is disqualified due to the no superheroes rule, but of course, that is his finest movie.
Hulk is great. I mean,
I really need to rewatch Hulk.
It's weird to think that this is the movie that they do after Hulk. Ang Lee and James Schamus, producing partners up through, I can't remember what movie they worked on together last year. Taking Woodstock's the last movie they did together, but they work on the movies, and there's this great story of them finishing work on Hulk, and James Schamus goes to see Spider-Man opening day, fully aware of what movie they're making with Hulk and how they're trying something. Whether or not you think Hulk works, they're trying something in that movie.
Yeah.
But they said you would sit and watch Spider-Man, and then as soon as the movie finishes and Spider-Man's on the American flag on the flagpole, and we're 9 months after 9/11, he just calls Ang Lee and he's we're fucked.
We've got to pivot hard into Gay Cowboys. How the fuck did Ang Lee get the job on Sense and Sensibility? I've always wondered this. I
can't remember what the exact story was, but I think he made 3 movies in Taiwan. I think he made 3 Taiwan movies, and I think they saw The Wedding Banquet, and someone was sold on The Wedding Banquet being very much the style that they wanted Sense and Sensibility to be, and hired him to do that. And then he did Eat, Drink, Man, Woman in between those two, which because he had 2 Oscar nominations for Best Foreign Film before he did Sense and Sensibility.
Sure, I don't know. He seems like a massive outlier in that movie, and it's good for him and good for them. But
I mean, sure. I mean, that movie's weird. It's Emma Thompson's screenplay, and apparently, he was a great boon on set. And I don't think anyone's got a bad word to say about him from that movie.
He has some bad words to say about Sheep, though. But it didn't
he does have some very bad words to say about Sheep.
Didn't hold him back. But yes, released December 2005 in the US, January 2006 in the UK. So, our one and only entry in terms of contextualizing years on 2005, heralded as possibly the greatest year in the history of cinema, right, Ben?
Oh my god, it's so let's just run through the top 20 movies of 2005, and you have to tell me how many of these you think still exist, you have thought about in the last couple of years. So we have Flight Plan.
Nope, forgot it exists.
40-Year-Old Virgin, which is
yeah, it's good. It's
the start of a trend.
Yeah.
Fun with Dick and Jane.
No.
We talked about coasting off of Eternal, it's Jim Carrey, Eternal Sunshine making as much money it did based on Jim Carrey, Fun with Dick and Jane.
I objectively know that movie exists and would list it as a thing Jim Carrey was in, but it occupies 0 brain space in my head.
The Pacifier.
That is sitting I have a pile of DVDs somewhere that I keep meaning to get rid of, and that one is often sitting at the top of that pile. That's not because it's the worst one there, it's just it is often at the top of the pile. So yeah, that one has actually been in my mind a lot.
Walk the Line, which is it's fine. I mean, it's just a music biopic. Robots.
Yep, forgot that exists.
Chicken Little.
You were a crazy person who told me we should do every Disney movie, so that was on the list, and I was like, oh yeah, Chicken Little.
Zach Braff's star vehicle after Scrubs. Fantastic Four.
Yes, because I said the other day I've been meaning to rewatch the original one. Well, not the original, but no one can watch the original. The footage is gone. But yeah, I keep meaning to rewatch that. I assume Chris Evans is delightful and the rest is shit.
The Longest Yard?
Yeah, well, that is hitting me in a cultural crossover of things, so it being bad doesn't affect me. So
I'm just a little bit shocked that that's the 12th highest grossing movie of 2005, to be honest.
Yeah, man, Adam Sandler was a box office draw.
I mean, yeah, now he just makes Netflix movies. He just like Netflix give him money, and then he hangs out with some friends, and they film it, and they go like, there's a plot, I think.
Fuck your cartoon about representation. We have money for Adam Sandler to use.
Hitch, Will Smith's greatest role.
Is that a genuine opinion?
No, it's not a genuine opinion.
Good.
Mr. and Mrs. Smith, the movie that broke a marriage.
Yeah, no, gone from my head.
Madagascar.
Yeah. Largely because of Chris Rock.
3 of them? 4 of them? 3 in a Penguins movie.
There's been more than one Penguins movie, isn't there? Or I guess some of them are short. I swear there's like a direct-to-DVD movie. There's like 100 Madagascar projects.
And now we get to the best movie objectively on this list, Batman Begins.
Of course, the best Batman.
Like there is literally no better movie on this list than Batman Begins. No. Tim Burton's Charlie Chocolate Factory, which I do like.
I don't like Tim Burton, so hard skip on that one.
Wedding Crashers, which is kind of stunning. It's the 6th highest grossing movie of the year. Wedding Crashers made more money than Batman Begins.
It shocks me Wedding Crashers made so much money. I somewhat like Wedding Crashers, but yeah, that high up a list is damning.
And now we get to like the start of like the franchise boon, and also 2 directors kind of coasting off of their fame. King Kong, Pete Jackson's follow-up to Lord of the Rings. It's 3 hours long, and a woman eye fucks an ape.
Don't you not even see the ape for like an hour?
Ooh, I don't know if that maybe, possibly. It's been a while since I've seen it. I think there's a lot on the boat. War of the Worlds, Steven Spielberg did not like 9/11.
Yeah, because you and I have had some debates about War of the Worlds, so that's why that still is in my head.
Harry Potter 4, the worst Harry Potter movie.
My favourite Harry Potter book. I don't know about it as a movie. I think.
I mean, 1 and 2 are probably worse. But there are also children's movies made by a director who mostly makes children's movies, that it feels harsh to, like, criticise them, whereas...
I remember so little of 5 that in my head it's worse than 4, but sure.
5 is the best movie. No, it's not best movie. Best book. Best book, not the best movie.
Really? I've never heard that opinion before.
5 is the best book. It's my favourite.
Alright, well, I look forward to our Harry Potter podcast at some point.
Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Lol.
They started strong, and then the franchise just completely peaked it off an edge.
Why hasn't that ever worked as like an enormous Harry Potter level franchise?
Because C.S. Lewis is a massive Christian and he hates women.
Yes, but you could just ignore those facts.
I mean, you can't. When the last book is just like, oh, she got into makeup and boy, she can't come to heaven with us. I'm Jesus line, I've declared this.
Yeah, I guess that does totally happen, doesn't it?
And then Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, the best of the prequel movies.
What? Shocking. Oh, what a take there.
Which I also shouldn't be calling the prequel movies anymore. It's the Age of Republic. Age of Rebellion is the originals, and Age of Resistance is the sequels. But yeah, 2005 is a profoundly weird year. It's like this weird middle year in cinema where like these shoots of like the upcoming comedy boom are here. Lots of adult comedies in that top 20. Judd Apatow and Nick Stoller on multiple movies. You've got superhero movies, you've got massive franchises, but it feels like just all of them feel so inconsequential. Like no one can figure out how to actually make a good movie.
No, except Batman Begins.
Batman Begins. But yeah, we got good movies from 2005. We've got Cachet, Brokeback Mountain, Grizzly Man.
History of Violence.
History of Violence.
A movie that could have been talked about.
Yes. Squid and the Whale, Munich. Good Night and Good Luck, George Clooney's directorial debut, Walton Gromit, Cursed the Were-Rabbit, The Descent, Neil Marshall's audition for Game of Thrones. 2005 is this weird year where like there's a lot of good movies that are going on, but like nothing feels kind of like...
What won the Oscar, Ben? Say the words, Ben.
Crash won the Oscar in 2005.
Famous audible gasp at the Oscars when Jack Nicholson said Crash.
Did you know, Matt, that racism is bad?
No.
You didn't know, because the 2 white people made a movie about...
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like Paul Haggis and Bobby Moresco wrote a movie.
Yeah, but white people fix racism every year and almost win an Oscar.
The whole point of Crash is like, it kind of goes like, well, what if made racism explicit? And then it just becomes this cartoonish thing where like people go up and just shout like, oh, I hate you because you're black, and it's like this.
You don't have to tell me why Crash is bad, but
I know, but Crash is so fucking bad.
Yeah.
And I feel like the only reason it wins is because its competition that year is Brokeback Mountain, which is so firmly the most memorable movie of that selection. It became mimetic, it's still within the culture. Ang Lee won the fucking Best Director Oscar. It's like quite often in the Oscars you'll see the Best Director, Best Film split, and quite often the Best Director will be the movie that should have won Best Picture.
Sure.
But for whatever reason, politics got in the way and made it not happen. And it's a real shame, because I think there are genuine times where like we should have more of a Best Director, Best Picture split, because directing and picture are not like for like, but the times where there is a split are like, it's like Shakespeare in Love versus Saving Private Ryan, where it's like, it's so obvious that Saving Private Ryan should have won. It's stuff like this year where Roma wins Best Director and Green Book wins Best Picture, and it's like, in what world are we saying that Roma is a worse film than Green Book?
Yeah, should have been Infinity War, but you know.
It should have been Infinity War. I mean, but like then you got times where like it actually feels like something that actually happens. Like I love what Barry Jenkins did with Moonlight, and Moonlight winning Best Picture is probably the best upset we could have expected this decade. But I'm not upset that Damien Chazelle won Best Director for La La Land, because La La Land is
directed like a motherfucker.
Very directed movie.
Yeah.
Like, and that's not to say that Barry Jenkins didn't direct Moonlight fantastically, but like that feels like the kind of split we should be doing. Like even down to like, I don't think Argo's the best movie, but I can see why you chose it over Life of Pi, and Life of Pi deserves Ang Lee's second Best Director nod for that one. And so like, there are those times it feels like it's deserved, whereas there are other times where like the controversial movie wins and you sit there and go like, it should have been someone else. It
won at like most other awards things, and Ang Lee like cleared it. Wasn't he like the first person to win the Oscar, the BAFTA, I don't even remember the names of everything else, but like I think he was the first person to win like 4 or 5 of these major awards, Best Director award.
I mean, quite possibly. I mean, but yeah, like the movies it's Crash, Brokeback, Capote, Good Night and Good Luck, and Munich. One of those is objectively like one of the worst movies of that year, and it's the one that won. And it's all down to, and as we touched on earlier, it's all down to that kind of like historic precedence of it's the gay cowboy movie, and so many people in the Academy are older white voters.
Jack Nicholson claims he voted for Brokeback.
Yeah, there's one famous quote where I can't remember who it was. Someone who used to work with John Wayne came out and was just like, "Why would I vote for? I'm not going to see that movie. John Wayne is turning in his grave."
Fucking hell.
It's just like, there's so obviously that political sentiment behind it that I'm not going to vote for this. Instead, I'm going to go for the movie that makes me feel good, because I'm not this racist person that goes out and shouts at black people. I'm better than that. Racism is so awful. Look at this clear example of what racism is, ignoring the structural things that racism does to a country that makes it so that...
Yeah, you know who was a fucking racist? John fucking Wayne. Anyway.
Utter travesty that Crash won Best Picture. It is the worst thing that the Academy have done this century.
The Green Book of its day.
The Green Book of its day. And even then, Green Book wasn't the worst movie that was nominated that year. Bohemian Rhapsody is an utter travesty of a movie.
Okay.
At least Green Book is competently made.
Fair enough. I didn't see either of those, but fair enough.
We can run into the movie now.
That's fine. So it's 134 minutes long. I think it is too long. I think the back half of it drags a bit. I know some of the best scenes in the whole movie are towards the end, but just the back half of it I do think is a bit bloated, and like you're introducing some stuff quite late that I don't know, like when David Harbour and Anna Faris show up and it's like there's like 20 minutes left in this thing. It's a bit like, oh,
I feel like David Harbour pays off though, because David Harbour comes up like 3 times and it's quite a nice little subtle through line at the end there.
It is, but I think they could have appeared much earlier and we could have trimmed some stuff to get them in there, but I don't know. Tiny budget of $14 million made it back in its first week because it made $178 million. In the end, they made their money back just by selling the international distribution rights. So
I mean, yeah, like at the end, like this movie still was, I think, like just looking at like the yearly list, it's the worldwide list, it's still like the 22nd highest grossing movie of the year or something like that.
Yeah,
this movie is still massive.
It set a record for like most money per screening, I think. So it wasn't widely available, but where it was available, it was selling out because, you know, the people that want to see it really want to see it. So as you said, based on the short story by Annie Proulx, she sent signed copies to the leads. She accidentally wrote Ennis on Heath's copy, and I think she's fucking lying because she was like, I came to reflect on it and he really just was Ennis. It's like, no, you fucked up and you just want to say something cutesy now. But anyway, Gus Van Sant was originally signed on to adapt it. He wanted Matt Damon for Ennis. Matt Damon, in a quote I am not a fan of from a man I am generally a fan of, said, I made a gay movie, then I made a cowboy movie. I can't follow this up by making a gay cowboy movie. Shame on you, Matt Damon, if that means...
I mean, Matt Damon notorious for putting his foot in his mouth.
Yes, I think he is a nice person who chooses his phrasing poorly. Like myself, maybe that's why I identify with him. Joel Schumacher was briefly linked, but Ang Lee ultimately got it. He was going to retire after Hulk. Like, he said making Crouching Tiger and Hulk, like, completely wrecked him, and he was just going to, like, go off into the sunset, and then this movie, like, re-energized his soul, and he's been making movies ever since. Other considerations for the leads include Ben Affleck. Imagine if we had a Matt Damon, Ben Affleck cowboy movie. Like, oh man.
I feel like they'd be going for the same role though.
Yeah, probably. Billy Crudup, Colin Farrell, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Josh Hartnett, Joaquin Phoenix, Mark Wahlberg. I think Mark Wahlberg's a bit of a bullshitter because he was like, oh yeah, they wanted it to be me and Joaquin, but I just couldn't. He basically said he was put off by the graphic nature of the sex scenes or whatever. I was like, the one sex scene? The one?
He didn't want to spit in his hand.
Yeah, I mean, his brand is like the straightest white dude in America, so it's like, you know. I'm depressed by how often we've done these, and I've said, considered for the role was Mark Wahlberg. It's like, stop trying to cast this man and everything. Joseph Fiennes aggressively pursued being in the film, but he didn't get it, obviously. Heath Ledger and Michelle Williams, of course, got together famously while making this, had a child. Jake Gyllenhaal is the godfather, but they did go on to split up, sadly. Anne Hathaway had to audition in full costume and makeup during a lunch break from filming Princess Diaries 2. I cannot imagine a more comical thing in an audition than a woman turning up as a princess to read for this role. She lied about being able to ride horses, spent 2 months learning, and then because of insurance reasons, they pretty much... I don't know if the scene where she takes the hat back off him is real, but certainly the scene where she's like bolting is a double. Filmed almost entirely in Canada because everything is, and it's cheaper and prettier and everything. Both leads were offered to go to what they called a cowboy camp, but Heath declined because he grew up on farms, but Jake, in their words, needed toughening up. It's the first film to be released digitally and on DVD on the same day, which is a very strange stat. And they actually released it on DVD while it was still in theatres, because I think there was such a demand for it that they had to keep it going. And this is our second film that has been put into the National Registry after Memento. I did mention when we covered Memento that you might be able to figure out one of the other films on the list based on that, and if you guessed it was Brokeback Mountain, well done. You get a prize. So, this movie begins in Wyoming in 1963. I think the whole movie spans 20 years, because I think the end is 1983. And Jack Twist and Ennis Del Mar meet while both seeking work herding sheep, or Joe Aguirre, played by Randy Quaid, who sued the filmmakers because he claims they pitched it as an art house movie that had no intention of making any money, and then when it became very successful, he was like, I have been misled and underpaid, and then he quietly dropped the lawsuit because fuck off, Randy Quaid.
They had no intention of making money. Like, no, everything has intention of making money. You signed on to do a $14 million budget movie directed by the multiple Oscar award nominated director, starring two of the biggest up-and-coming actors in the world.
But you can also see why they would be like, hey, let's all set our expectations about how much money this might make because of the subject matter. So it's like, it's not their fault that people had a bigger palate for it than they might have conservatively expected. I would say, while the best scenes are probably not in this stretch, the opening half hour, 40 minutes are probably my favourite to watch. It is so beautiful, every shot of them outdoors. It almost works as a short film, almost, of just this is their summer on Brokeback Mountain, and then they go their separate ways or whatever. And obviously there's a whole lot of movie that has to come after that, but I just really love the montages of them herding these sheep over streams and up hills and in the snow and fending off wolves, and there's a bear, and I really, really like this first 40 minutes a whole hell of a lot. And Ang Lee has a real knack of shooting outdoors, I guess.
Have you seen the behind the scenes footage of the green screen and stuff like that, and what they did to make the outdoor scenes look good?
I know they color corrected the fuck out of the sky, but no.
There's stuff like they digitally put in the mountains in the background in so many scenes. So when you've got the wide open vistas and then in the background the mountains covered by smoke, they digitally put the background in and stuff like that.
Brokeback Mountain is a composite of various actual mountains and stuff. It's not a real mountain.
Yeah, obviously, most famously, Ang Lee worked with sheep on Sense and Sensibility and hated the experience. So basically, they used a very minimal amount of sheep on this movie, and almost every sheep in this film is digitally added in at a later point.
Because there's going to be 2,500 sheep here, and they maybe have a couple hundred, I don't know. But they got in some trouble because they were filming in Canada, and there's that scene where Joe's sheep have gotten mixed up with another person's sheep and they're having to separate them. They used a mix of American and Canadian sheep, and American sheep carry various bacterias and stuff that the Canadian ones don't, and they were like, if you let these fucking sheep interact, you're in some trouble, mister. And they did almost do that. So yeah, I can't imagine going in knowing nothing about this film, because from the word go, when you just see these two men just stiltedly standing far apart and like awkwardly just staring at the floor and receiving the instruction that they have to camp among the sheep with no fire and stuff, it's like you immediately just place on top of it this like subtext of like them immediately having an attraction towards each other.
There is so much sexual tension between
them. There is, definitely, and that's what I'm saying. Like, it had such a reputation before most people even saw it. I would be fascinated to find one person on the fucking planet who doesn't know anything about the movie and be like, look at this, and like watch them and how they react to it. But yeah, I think it is objectively just charged with tension, but like maybe it is just you are unable to separate what you know about the film from, you know, what you're seeing and stuff. But yeah, I like them just like staring at the floor.
I genuinely think that there is just a tension. Yeah. I don't know whether or not they shot these early scenes later, kind of like after they'd done the stuff on the mountain, or whether or not they really did it first, but I have to feel that they'd spent some time together when they do the opening scene, at least when they get the job. So, do we want to talk about Heath and Jake?
Yeah, Heath Ledger is fucking magnificent.
This is probably the best acting performance of the decade.
Probably, yeah.
He should have won the Oscar for this.
Yep.
The fact he should have had 2 Oscars by the end of his career, because even just thinking on a level of like, this is the same man who was the Joker.
Yeah.
2 years later.
Yep. This is the kid from 10 Things I Hate About You. This is I don't have words for how good he is.
Like, he's so coiled. His entire demeanor is like just completely changed. There's so much repressed energy.
I was gonna say he's heartbreakingly repressed in like almost every line of dialogue and every piece of body language he has.
I mean, I'm sure there's some kid who's doing their like filmwork thesis and say like, well, the way he talks, he barely opens his mouth, it's a sign of his repression.
I had to watch this without subtitles, and there are definitely entire sentences I do not know what he said. When he said his daddy said that rodeo guys are something, I was like, are you saying faggots in a really weird way? He says something, and then Jake just starts, running around and shouting, and yeah, he's fantastic. Like, just visibly crushed under the weight of like male expectation and like hypermasculinity. And
this movie is so much about like, not only is it about him coming true to himself about what sexuality is, but it is also very much about toxic masculinity. And
I think it's more about that. Like, it's not in any way, it's not treated in any way controversial that these two, well, no, it is, but it is just tacitly put there that they fall for each other. It's just the entire rest of it is just Ennis having to like grapple with that, and like there is I don't know if it's understated, but in the background of all of it, there's a giant class issue here where he is desperately poor and having to pay alimony and to take all these shitty jobs just like instantly, and like this leads to him doing a lot of very shitty stuff towards his family, and like Jack marries into money and stuff, and it's like there is that kind of tension between them about, you're rich and I'm poor, let's dance together. Sorry. That like he comes from a world of like a very working class, raised on a farm, like all this sort of stuff. It informs a lot of his behaviors and stuff, and it's just, Ennis is like such a tragic character. Like, a strong argument that he's a shitty human being, but the reasons he is a shitty human being are very, very depressing and like sympathy inducing and everything.
Watching this performance now, just over 10 years since Heath died, just imagine what kind of performance we would have got out of him. Imagine what he would have done after Dark Knight.
Yeah.
Alone. Like, because obviously, like, Dark Knight got so much shit for being like, oh, they've hired the gay cowboy guy to be the Joker. What is this? And
yeah, then it got all that shit for like, oh, he killed himself because he was so depressed because he was like holed up in a hotel room, like being the Joker and whatnot. And it's like, no, he filmed like other things after, like he was done with it.
Like, not to say that Heath Ledger didn't have his problems, but it is
sure. But
it's just, yeah,
he's so defined by like being this tragically like dark Joker, and it's like, but what potential he had as an ongoing movie star entity in this business, and like the roles he could have gone on to do and everything, and like this is by far his best one, and like it's scary to think he possibly could have topped this one day, you know? Like,
it's bizarre to think, like, because obviously he started off in this quite, and it's one thing I do really appreciate about this cast, which is that all 4 of the main actors, 5 if you want to extend it to like Linda Cardellini,
I don't. She's surprisingly highly credited for how much of the film she's in.
But I mean, they all come from fairly definitive teen roles.
Yeah.
Heath Ledger's got 10 Things I Hate About You, Jake Gyllenhaal's got Donnie Darko, Michelle Williams obviously has Dawson's Creek, Anne Hathaway's coming from Princess Diaries, Linda Cardellini's coming off Freaks and Geeks. That everyone in this movie is so young. I don't think any of them are over 25. Like, Heath Ledger's like 25 when he filmed this movie, and everyone else is like less old than that.
Yeah, then you got Kate Mara playing his daughter, and she's like 21. And it's like, oh, okay, sure. But they do a really good job of aging them up over the course of the...
They do a good job, but they don't do like prosthetics. But there is this like fantastic thing where, like, because they cast them so young, these early scenes on the mountain are given such a youthful energy.
They've got such baby faces, and like seeing Jake shave when he's barely got any fucking facial hair in the first place, and like right at the end when you see that flashback to the first summer, it's so like visually striking to like, be like, this is like looking at different human, this is almost like Boyhood or something. Like, it's and like like you said, there's no prosthetics, it's just the way they dress them, the way they're like, I think there's a lot of like physical like acting of like, you know, carrying yourself differently, and really good. It's not that Jake is bad, I think he is good. I don't think it's his best performance.
Jake doesn't get to be big until that last scene on Brokeback Mountain.
Yeah, that's where he's going for it.
I think he's got like a few good scenes, but his good scenes are mostly in like the back half of the movie, whereas this is just him having to be charismatic and not carry quite as much baggage as Ennis and Heath do. But again, he's coming off like, I think Jake gets better as an actor as he gets older, whereas Heath Ledger is so fully formed at this point. I mean, like, because he's had Donnie Darko, he's had Day After Tomorrow at this point, but like we're still a few years away from Zodiac and from like Prisoners and Enemy and stuff like that. Like Jake is only going to get better as an actor from here, and this is still like a pretty good performance. It's just he's up against the best acting performance of the decade.
Yeah.
Anyone will look bad.
Yes. Well, we're talking about these two, and reasonably early in the movie, they get drunk and they get down with their bad selves, and it's sad that I have to call this brave, but it is undeniably, I think, courageous acting by both of them. That it sucks that a number of actors would be put off by something like this, but there is an intensity to all of the physical scenes that is, I don't think everyone would be up for it. Like, there are plenty of straight actors that play gay characters, but it's done in a very like less intense way, let's say. But this is like a full-on, they are like wrestling each other down, and like, you know, the spit in the hand is shockingly graphic for, I mean, it's not even, but it, you know, the implication that immediately comes with
there's the implication, but it's like, it's also like one of those few sex scenes where like the mechanics of sex are actually like considered, being portrayed.
Yeah.
It's just like you watch sex and it's just like, okay, and now they're thrusting, and it's like,
he has perfect access immediately, and they have both climaxed inside 60 seconds, and everyone was perfectly hard and wet.
Everyone's not dishevelled, and
yeah, it's just perfect. Oh, great stuff. They bring so much intensity to all of these physical scenes, and Heath Ledger famously almost broke Jake Gyllenhaal's nose kissing him in one. I assume it's the scene where they meet up after this first summer.
I mean, yeah, like if like genuinely the scenes, it's so rough and so much like we have been apart so long, I need to drink all of you in as quickly and forcefully as possible, and it's so erotically charged, but also at the same time not being like overtly erotic. Like it's that weird thing where like you can feel the tension and whatnot, but it's not getting into the point of it being salacious.
Yeah, you know, before they actually get it on, we see them like gradually bonding. Like Ennis is very reluctant to speak, and he gradually does open up a little bit about his family, and like he's teasing Jack about the rodeo and about his harmonica playing skills and all of this stuff, and you get these shots like Jack is carving or something while Ennis is washing himself in nothing but a cowboy hat. An acting decision I applaud. flawed, personally. You know, your expectation is he's going to, like, sneak a peek and be like, oh, I'm attracted to him. But
you can see the eyes are, like, thinking about darting over there.
It's the not looking is more powerful than the looking, almost, you know?
Yeah, but I mean, Ang Lee is notorious for being a very, like, body language focused director, because he is a native Taiwanese speaker. He quite often will, like, guide the directors in terms of their body language.
Yeah.
And if he does give them acting tips, it'll be kind of like very short clipped English sentences.
Well, I mean, like, physicality is universal. So
yeah, and you feel it so much, especially in a movie like this, where there's so much physicality going on. There's so much, because most of the characters in this movie don't speak that much. There is so much that has to be portrayed by how they stand, how they act, what they do. And this is kind of like, the whole movie is structured like this, but everything in this movie is kind of like a little 5 to 10 minute vignette.
It's so time capsule-y, and very rarely do they... I think they put the date at the very beginning. I don't think... Maybe they put one more date somewhere, but like...
they definitely say the date.
Yeah,
they get further along.
But you are just trusted to be like, oh, the daughters look older, so I guess time has passed. And
yeah, like quite often they'll say, like, the daughters are the X age, or like, we've been married for this long, or it's been this long since we've seen each other, and you just kind of have to figure it out as you go along.
And you have to just sort of guess for yourself how often these two are meeting up. Is it months? Is it years? Is it a combination of both? Like, sometimes they see each other 3 times in a year, sometimes only once, sometimes not at all in a year, or whatever. Like you said, Jack initiates the encounter. It's not like a awkward, oh, we almost kissed. Oh no, it's like he full on just in the night grabs his hand, and he initially responds with that, like, violence and like wrestling for position almost, and like, I don't, it's so powerful. I don't even know how else to describe it, just seeing the, like, raw masculinity, which, you know, some people who are very misguided and equate masculinity to straightness would balk at, but like, that their very rough sex is so masculine, you know, like, and like, I think people, like, commended Jake for, like, being the one that takes it, as it were, you know, like him having to, like, bend over and, like, grab it, and like he, like, slams his hand down and stuff, and like, you know, it's all very, and you know, this subtext of, like, you know, what he does for a living, you know, he is a rodeo, what do they call them, because I know there's rodeo clowns, but he's not
he's
the
rodeo man
rodeo person. He's sitting atop wild beasts and trying to control them, and in this instance he is losing control. Exactly, yes, and he is the one being ridden, as it were.
And they don't actually just he's in the rodeo life.
Exactly. I feel that's the only way you can talk about it. You know, he's in the rodeo, so what's his job? You know, he's in the rodeo.
There's the line later on where he goes, like, I made $2,000 last year. I almost starved, because so much of it is like, you get paid if you win.
Exactly.
And if you aren't the best, if you don't have the best control.
And there are these, twice, I think, early on, he makes a real show of it in front of Ennis, where, like, he's riding this horse, and Ennis is like, oh, you want to be careful with that horse. He's like, oh, there isn't a horse that can throw me. And when you actually see him later, when he goes back to down to Texas, I don't know if he moves or if he's from there and he's travelled up for the work, but when he's in Texas, he's actually quite bad at it. But then when he meets Lorraine, he's good at it. And it's like this idea that he's only good at it when he's showing off for someone, you know? Like
yeah, because he doesn't fall off the horse in front of Ennis.
Exactly.
He falls off the horse off camera, and it's just kind of, like, offhandedly mentioned.
Yes. After this, they both agree that they're not queer, and
we're not gay. We're just two men who like spending manly time together.
Yeah, and I think Jake even said, I don't think these guys know what gay means, to be honest. Like, and it's such a, like, it's all just so deeply ingrained in the hyper-masculinity of the world, that especially this, like, you know, the West, rough and tumble cowboy, like, this sort of stuff. It is all just so much straightness coded.
I mean, yeah, you get so much of it from the way that Ennis tells the story of his dad showing him the corpse of the gay man, and he's like, I don't know if my dad did it, and you can tell how much that weighs on him, this idea that, like, I can't do this because I don't want to end up having my face smashed in by a tire iron and my
dick ripped
off. I can't live through the idea that this could happen to me.
Exactly.
And I will not engage this. I will do it because this is something that I feel I need as a person.
Yeah. But he says, what we have here, this is just for this summer, and, like, he says, I think he even says, like, or is it later where he says about how the there's no reins on this horse and we just ride it for as long as we can and stuff. And I think it's when they meet up again that he says that, because Jack implicitly asks him, like, so when am I going to see you or whatever. And it's like,
but even then, like, Jack like tries to hide his queerness from Ennis. They're like, oh, have you done this before? Have you done this since? And Jack's just like, no, I haven't. But like, we know that he's been trying at least to see people at bars. And then he goes to Mexico later on after Ennis rejects him after he gets divorced. And it's like a big reveal of Jack to go like, I've been sleeping with people in Mexico. The woman who I said I was sleeping with, the ranch hand next door, it's not the wife he's sleeping with.
It's the husband.
It's the husband.
But all of that is left as subtext, though. He never actually says that. Well, I guess his father confirmed. Well, no, even then, it's just like they're talking about someone, and you just put two and two together and assume it's David Harbour's character. But they agree it's this summer and this summer only. And like, is there supposed to be some symbolism to? Because then it's like bolts the morning after, and he goes to check on the sheep that they have neglected, and one of them has been eaten by a wolf or coyote or whatever. Really bugs me when Americans say coyote. I don't know what, but and Joe sees them, and initially he does nothing, and you're sort of waiting for this big, ugly, homophobic scene to occur, but he just sort of sidles up and he's like, oh, your uncle's not well. And it's like, were you trying to get him to leave here, and then when he doesn't, you later try again or whatever? But
I think the book's a bit more explicit in that he sees them have sex in the book, right. I believe.
Well, he sees them like wrestle each other to the ground and then kiss. In the
yeah, he sees them being very hands-on, but in the book it literally says like he watches him like put his trousers back on and ride away.
Yeah.
But yeah, like Joe Aguirre kind of like keeps it quiet, possibly because he's like, well, they're up here now.
Yeah.
They can still take care of the sheep.
Well, that's the thing. They're not. Because they're supposed to sleep apart. That's the whole deal. And like, they drink for too long, and Ennis falls asleep, and then he just shares the tent with him because it's cold.
Imagine if this is like Aguirre's problem every single year. He's like, I keep sending them up to the mountain, but they just won't stop fucking.
Yeah.
just every year, it's like a new pair of like gay ranch hands go up into the mountains.
Look, man, you leave two people alone camping with no light up on that mountain. They can't fuck. I don't care. Anyway, he does eventually tell them to bring the sheep down early. He claims there's a big storm coming. He tells them they did a bad job, and the two of them, I'm going to phrase it as they awkwardly part ways because we'll get into it, but yeah, they have this, when they're told that they're coming down, they have this kind of, they know like, alright, we got to get out of here, and like they have a bit of a like jostle that turns into a, like Jack accidentally bloodies.
Yeah, they're having a month taken away from them because they're coming down in August rather than in September.
Yes.
So like there's this pent up like, oh, we thought we had longer together.
Yeah, 100%, and like Jack is trying to be like, hey, let's be nice to each other now that we're parting, and Ennis is very just like, he doesn't know how to say the words, I don't want it to end yet, or whatever, so he just closes right off, and he becomes very like shitty towards him, and like, yeah, Jack accidentally busts his nose, so then he punches him, and it's like, it becomes very important later that there is like blood on the sleeve of this shirt, and he says how, oh, I can't believe I lost my shirt up there and all this, and that will all take on a huge meaning towards the end of the movie. But yeah, and they get told they did a terrible job, and Ennis basically tries to play it cool, and he's brushing Jack off when he's like, are you going to come back next summer? And then when Jack is gone, he's like almost literally sick with hurt. Like he doubles over and dry heaves and punches the wall, and then when someone sees him, he like lashes out, because Ennis is a very violent character, as we will see keep rearing its head. He gets into a lot of fights because repressed masculinity. Yeah, and then we move into Act 2. So like I said, I'd say Up Until They Part Ways is probably my favourite stretch of this movie. I just think it's so simple and so beautiful and so well done, all of it.
I mean, it definitely could have just been that, and it tells a complete story.
It does.
I adore this next stretch of the movie, because we go from that kind of like him retching by the side of it, where he tells that guy to like fuck off when he comes by, because he's like, he can't process his emotions, and then we hard cut to his marriage to Alma.
Yeah, and he's just looking like himself. Like, for most of this movie, he looks like Ennis Del Mar, like the big cowboy man. And then when he's getting married and he's in the suit and he does the little grin, it's like, this is just Heath Ledger. Look at this cheeky little Australian man. Yes, he returns home.
I think it's around here. His accent dips at some point around this point as well. Yeah. I feel,
as long as he mumbles, it's fine.
So Michelle Williams is Alma.
Beers.
Who is so phenomenal. So good. She should have won the Oscar.
Probably.
I'm gonna say that a lot. Like, Jake's the only one that I'm not like willing to put like it down and go like should have won the Oscar. Michelle should have won the Oscar. So they live together. They have 2 kids, and she's complaining about like she wants to live close to the town, but for some reason Ennis has this obsession with like working on ranches and just wants to live out in the middle of nowhere rather than close to town.
I think he just feels this like intense, almost literally beaten into him by his father, this lifestyle, because he always resists anything that isn't just ranch work.
Which is why he makes no money.
Exactly.
Because he keeps like in this dying industry in America where like no one is doing this anymore. We're heading into the 1970s. This isn't a thing that is a sustainable...
Yeah. She definitely wants a better life for them because they start off not all that well off and they get progressively poorer, and like he ends up in a fucking trailer park by the end of it. It's crazy. And
she marries the local grocer man.
Yeah, her boss. You know, we see them have sex, and you know, he is very physical with her, right? They do kiss a lot and stuff, but there is this subtext of he has to have the lights off and he has to take her from behind and she has to be very like, come here, and he's like drawing away from her, and it's like, well, yeah, we know what's going down here.
It's interesting that the movie like kind of phrases it that way, because the book's a lot more like the sex between them is actually like erotic. The sex is a lot more erotic, like it describes like the build up to it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Whereas in film, like this first sex scene is very much like him turning her away from him. He can only do it from behind.
Yeah.
Feels like this implication that he's trying to relive those moments with Jack.
Aspects of the like straight relationships are like pretty hot. Like the scenes between Jake and Anne that they would like enjoy so much they'd make a whole movie about in Love and Other Drugs. They're really like erotic, and it's like it's not that they don't enjoy the female form, and I think given again how like instilled straightness would have been in both of them, it would be hard for them to not enjoy it. It's just, you know, they want what they want. She is, of course, put off by they go to like a 4th of July celebration, and he like picks a fight with these 2 drunks who are like cursing up a storm in front of kids and everything, and he beats the shit out of them, and she's very like horrified by it, and it's this ongoing thing that I feel a number of people had a problem with it. Like you were saying, like, you know, John Wayne's turning his grave, but like that it's almost a takedown of the traditional American man, and it's like while some would identify him as like strong and good for defending his woman and all that, she instead reacts with horror, and it's like...
Because he picks so many fights in this movie.
He does, constantly. Including with Jack. Including with Alma.
Yeah, like, he's so bad at choosing his... He can't express himself well enough, and the only way he knows how to express himself is violence.
Exactly.
And you like the 4th of July fight, there's... and we'll get to the kind of the big failed fight.
You also see... She works at a grocery store in town or whatever, and, like, he rocks up, dragging the kids, and just dumps them on her while she's in the middle of her shift, so he can go to do some work. It's not even that, like, he has to start, you know, like she's in the middle of work,
and chances are the work he's going to do is going to pay them less than what she's doing.
Exactly. And it's just, there is this inescapable thing where he has just some really shitty gender role ideas, but like again, the reasons behind why he is how he is are so like tragic. I don't want to say I don't blame Ennis, because it's like there are plenty of people that are taught shitty things that go on to not be shitty themselves. So I don't want to blame him, but I also don't want to absolve him fully. But yeah, I think there is some fucked stuff happening with.
Yeah, I think the thing about this is like he's a character. Like, of course. I know, but I just think it's quite notable that we're both referring to them as the names of the characters, which I feel like
we just kept saying Denzel by accident in training.
Yeah, exactly. Like we slip into it when it's someone who's bigger than the role, whereas this, all of them slot so easily into their roles.
Yeah,
it's a character. He's a flawed character. He's not a good person.
No,
but he's interesting, and
yeah, he's incredibly interesting. Meanwhile, Jack, he actually tries to go back to Brokeback Mountain, or he does go back to Brokeback Mountain looking for identical work, and Joe just flat out tells him, no, I've got no work for you. And again, you're waiting for this big homophobic scene where it's like, I ain't employing no fucking queers or whatever. But while
we get the line, twist, you guys weren't getting paid to leave the dogs babysit the sheep while you stem the rows.
Yes.
Which is gorgeous and beautiful, and
yes, there is undeniably this subtext of homophobia, but I think most films would actually fully lean into it and have that ugly scene where like, oh, and look at this homophobic man, we judge him. In his defense, they were incredibly negligent of their job.
I wish we knew how much they fucked up, because all we saw is the death of one sheep. Sure. Obviously, more than one sheep died, because he's like, I'm not happy with the number. But like, is he unhappy because they came back with 225? Like, they lost 200 or whatever, or is he unhappy because...
Exactly, that's what I mean by it's like a subtext, but it's like, there is that other side of it where, like, I'm sure he doesn't approve, but also it's like, in a world where he'd employed a man and a woman to go up there, he wouldn't be happy if they'd fucked, I would imagine. But yeah, we don't like Randy Quaid as a human being, and he's well cast as a human being we don't
But
like.
the thing is that we do also get, like, if we want to discuss, like, because obviously Jack complains an awful lot that what he's making them do is, like, unethical. He's basically saying, you come to the camp, you eat food, and then you go spend the rest of the time with the sheep. That is not how this is supposed to work. It's supposed to be us both in the tent, rather than living on the mountainside with the sheep in a place where the park services don't want us to be.
And also, like, it's fucking freezing cold. Like, there's that scene where Ennis emerges from the tent, and, like, it's just, the tent has even been, like,
yeah, because even though it's summer, they're in such high altitude that it still will snow.
Yeah.
He says it melts in, like, an hour or so, but, like, it still, like, wakes up to that.
And as I said, he struggles with the rodeo that we see, but then he meets Lorraine, who is, I can't remember what they call her, like a barrel rider or some specific thing. And they start dating, and they have a child. And they are married, but we don't see them get married in the way we do Alma and Ennis. But I respect her commitment to her aesthetic, that even her bra is like this sort of rodeo theme, you know? It's like everything has to be, I live this life. This is for realsies.
I love that every interview she does, because she's come out and done like an interview where she said, like, I only get my breasts out when I do movies with Jake.
Yeah.
And there's this like interesting subject. It's like, are you implying that you just feel safer around Jake for whatever reason? Potentially the rumours going around about Jake Gyllenhaal are maybe true.
Come on now. It's not, I don't want to say she's the worst of the big four. It's just the other three, I think, get a lot more to do than
and
she does.
Yet, I will say she also should have been nominated for an Oscar, because I think her phone call scene later on in the movie is stupendous.
A very good scene. Yes,
is stupendous. She does so much with so little in that scene.
But I feel Lorraine is presented to us as a far more simple character than the other three, who have multitudes or whatever. Her father having just pure disdain for him and calling him rodeo or whatever, and like shoving him out the way while like they coo over the baby and stuff. It's all just good stuff. So eventually, I think 4 years later,
Jack sends a letter to Ennis.
Well, it's postcards. They swap postcards. Yes. And they arrange a dinner, and well, when Jack arrives, they Ennis like bounds down the stairs. Like he like
I love that even before this, Ennis is just like, he gets the postcard and then he immediately drives to the post office to send him a reply. Yeah. Like, not even like, I'll send him a note on my way to whatever. He's like, I must immediately send this letter now.
Yeah. And he's like sitting there like a hurt bunny while it's like, oh, is Jack even going to show up? And then as soon as
he's taken the whole day off from work, he doesn't know what time he's going to be there. He's just sat there in the window, like kind of like.
And then as soon as he gets there, huge grin on his face, bounds down the stairs. Like, I love that his lie is that they're old fishing buddies. Like, he could have just said, we met herding sheep, and like the lie would have held together better, because you clearly don't know nothing about fishing and you get outed because of that. They almost kiss in their like tight hug, and then
they have the most aggressive make-out session that I've ever seen.
Before that, like, Ennis like looks around quite a bit and is like, I'm not here, man. And then like, not even that well hidden. This must be where Heath almost broke his nose, because it's like so violently, intensely passionate. And Williams famously kept asking them to make it more intense to help her with the scene, because she was like, if you just do this like softly, I'm getting no like emotional impact from this. It needs to be like fierce. Like, I need
do this for me. You two hot men, make up for me.
Exactly. Do it, man. I'm going out with right now.
Every scene she has after she sees it is so good, because there's so much subtext to everything she's doing.
But I think it does need to be that intense, because you have to get across the idea that it's like he is getting something from him that he has never gotten from her, and like he's never kissed me like that and stuff like that. So I think she was right to keep pushing them to make it more intense, and also, you know, maybe for her own giggles. They go get a motel room and they catch up on the last 4 years, and then after that, Ennis literally, when he's like packing up to go on this fishing expedition, and he's like got short answers for every one of her questions, and like she's even like, oh, could you go get me some smokes? And he's like, oh, there's some in the top pocket over there, bye. And like, he picks up their daughter, and you're like, oh, this will be the thing that makes him think twice about it. But he just literally hands her over to Alma. It's like, yeah, you take this, bye. And off he goes. And it's like, again, there may even be some homophobia from Alma. where she may judge them for what they do or whatever, but like again, where it's like the front and center part of it is you are expecting a fight of them having to overcome homophobia. This is still an affair. Like, an affair is an affair is an affair, regardless of how she feels about who he's having an affair with. He is having an affair.
Yeah, like the emotions are about like some of it is like, do I know my husband, what he's really like, but it's also like so much like just being hurt, like he's doing this and doing it so blatantly as well.
Yeah, he is, because like real not good at this,
because they stay married for so many years after this.
I know, it's such a shock when you realise how long they stay together. And like, yeah, so they go away for 2 days and camp on Brokeback Mountain, and Jack outright is like, hey, we could just live like this, like let's just go get a ranch in the middle of nowhere and just be together. And Ennis is like, no. And
like because the guy like
this is where he tells the story. Yeah, it's so fucked up, really is. And like, I don't know if it makes it better or worse that you actually see a visual representation of it. I think it helps with the phone call scene much later, but like it's just so dark.
I kind of wish they didn't go in for the close up. I kind of wish that wasn't there.
For sure. He's also got that whole thing of like, we're both married with children.
Jack's fully just going like, well, let's just abandon the kids.
Yeah, fuck all that. This is all just pretend.
I mean, even in the book, Jack kind of like comes out and says like, I never intended on having a child. Lorene deals with the child.
Well, you see him trying to pick up a dude in that bar, and then Lorene, I don't know if it's the same, I think it's the same bar. Lorene like aggressively pursues him instead, and it's just like, yeah, this is clearly nothing he planned for. But yeah, and it also has that like, on top of the masculinity and all of that, there is also this like sense of duty to the family. Although I've got to say, he seems like a pretty shitty husband and father. But yeah, and so instead, you know, he says like, we'll do this as long as we can, and they basically are just going to do this here and there over the years until they just can't anymore. And we see Jack like transitions into selling farming equipment as part of like Lorene's family business and that, and we can see they get wealthier and stuff as
she's the matriarch. She's like doing taxes whenever we see her, and we never see Ennis more happy than when Jack comes to town. Jack's always the one who does the driving, and Lorene's always confused, like, why do you go all this way?
14 hours each way.
Yeah,
it's insane. Especially the one where like, because so Ennis and Alma get divorced in November of 75.
Before we I just want to say, like, every scene with Alma, like the scene where she sat there at the table with a coffee cup in her hand, like the morning after she gets back, is heartbreakingly good. Her dejectedly passing him the like fishing equipment that she knows he's not going to use.
Aren't you forgetting something?
Yeah, she does so much with so few lines at this point.
Her storming off to go to work, and like him like cursing up a storm in front of the kids, and then like
and they're one of their last times when they try and have, or the second time we see them have sex, where like it seems to be going well, and then she's like, "Can you put on protection?" I love that
this is what does it for him, you know, or it's like, you know, you don't want no more of my kids, and it's like, okay, man, but like
it's this weird moment where it's like, I don't know if it's that idea of like masculinity must be I must create more children, or if it's like for whatever reason I don't use condoms with Jack, which don't do, kids. If you are engaging in sex with both men and women, always use condoms.
Yes. Yes, do that. Yeah, and it's like, again, there is this, she reasons it as a economic reason of like, we're pretty behind on bills, so we probably shouldn't have more children. And it's like, that's a completely fair thing to say. But again, it's like the whole class and rich and poor thing is very much secondary or even tertiary to the other stuff that is going on. But yeah, there is this thing of like, these two are just desperately poor, and like, I don't know if they're living in the same place when we first see them together, and then like when you see her storming off past the swings and everything, it seems
that is where Jack and Ennis did.
You see Ennis's living situation just get worse and worse and worse. But when Jack drives all the way up there, the second he gets the postcard about the divorce, and then Ennis immediately knocks him back.
To be fair to Ennis, he does have both kids with him.
Yeah, and like, so he's got to pay alimony, and he only gets them once a month. That's crazy. And he skipped one of the months, and yeah, he has the girls there, and it's like, yeah, absolutely, that's fine. I meant more from like when we were talking about like the craziness of Jack does all the driving and how far it is, and it's like, geez, like
absolutely, yeah. Jack is so into him at this point. Jack is like, we can finally be together. I will leave Lorene now now. Let's go live together in the woods somewhere.
We could do our marriage over the phone and stuff like that.
And Ennis is like, I'm with the kids right now. Like, I read it as like being both a dejection of him, like, I can't do that because I've got my kids, but also like, I can't do this now. I can't run off with you now. Because of that. And so...
And also, I can't be gay in front of my kids, even though they're not going to like start fucking right there or anything. It's like, while my kids are here, like, I have to be in this like authoritarian, masculine patriarch role. He seems reluctant to even talk about any of it. Jack responds by driving down to Mexico and
having sex with a cinematographer.
Yes. Who was taller than the person they originally cast, and Ang Lee didn't like how short the person was, so he was like, in you go, si senor.
Well, I did actually know that was like a thing, like, because obviously like they mention it quite often, like it's a thing to people that go to Mexico.
Yes, you see the sign of like El Paso is this far away, and it's like, okay, yeah, you're heading down old Mexico way, and like an enormous number of things to unpack about like Mexico and poverty and sexuality and all these sorts of things. Anyway, we see their like awkward, terrible Thanksgivings. Jack gets his fuck yeah moment when he tells off Lorraine's father, who, like, he insists on carving the turkey, and, like, Jack turns off the TV. Their son wants to watch football during Thanksgiving, which, is very American, blah, blah, blah. The irony being they're watching a pair of Canadian teams face each other, but whatever.
I like that you picked up on that.
I did. Lorraine doesn't approve of him watching, but you can tell she's like, I don't get to...
Daddy's in charge.
Yeah, Dad and well, both my dad and your dad are in charge, and I am just a woman. I don't get to say these things. So, and then Jack is like, yeah, I'll go turn it off. And then I don't even know the name of Lorraine's father, but yeah, he goes and turns it back on, and then Jack turns it off again, and then he starts walking over to do it, and he's like, you fucking sit your ass down, like, you're my guest, this is my house, it's my TV. And then, like, he sulks to the degree that he doesn't even want to carve the bird anymore, and he's just sitting there silently. I like Lorraine's little, like, wry smile that someone told off her father.
This is one of Jake Gyllenhaal's best scenes in the movie.
Yeah, I love it.
Is this little outburst right now, because like again, like he is someone who's so chill and so laid back, but he's been so dejected by Ennis and like being in this marriage that he's not fully committed to, even though he has had sexual attraction to Lorraine in the past.
Yeah, I mean,
but he's so
Anne Hathaway is an objectively good-looking human being. Let's be real. And
I mean, they're all objectively good-looking human beings in this movie.
This is true, and it's also I feel a part of what triggers him is when he's like, you want him to grow up and be a man, he should watch football.
There's this like this implication that like, does he know? Does he get a feeling that Jack is like queer in some way? Like, because that's the thing is like they obviously like just they don't like him because he's a rodeo guy, but there's something.
You get the sense he doesn't think he's manly enough or whatever, and he doesn't respect him as a man.
He has also grown this awful mustache at this point.
He really has. He's looking like a pervert. There is a very slim number of men that can pull off a mustache, and sorry, Jake, you have not qualified. Meanwhile, Ennis is the sort of third wheel as Alma has remarried the boss from the convenience store or whatever, who is just presented as the most passive man alive, as a direct contrast to big, strong cowboy. I mean, Ennis is somewhat passive, but like there is like a force about him, and he's like a physically large-looking man and everything. And then you just have this guy who's just smiling and doing nothing and everything. And
he sits and like smokes a cigar whilst like they're in the kitchen having the fight that they should have had before they ended their marriage.
Exactly. Yeah, like she's all like, oh, you haven't remarried and we worry about you, and it's like, and then she fucking lays it all on the line. She's like, look, I put a note on your fishing line that still had the price tag on it and said, bring me back some fish, you know how much we like fish, and you told me how many fish you caught, but you ate them all, and then I checked your stuff and that note was still there and everything. And it's like, and like the second she really puts it out there, he pretty much fucking assaults her. Like I think he like grabs at her and like starts pushing her into the countertop or something. But
yeah, the short story describes as he goes past like this line that he's got in his head for what she's supposed to say.
Yes,
is what triggers it, and like you can tell that maybe she goes a touch too far for like where they're having this conversation. Like it's like Jack Nasty is
Jack Nasty, and then he like just fucking storms out, and the implication is he rarely sees that. I don't know if he like ever sees Alma again.
Yeah, I mean even the book says it's like he leaves and he's like, my daughters will figure out how awful Alma is, and they'll come back to me, and it's like Jesus, like he's fully willing to abandon his kids for them to realize that their mother who loves them and cares about them, because like the daughters have nothing to square against Alma, but yeah, he's like, they will come to me for love.
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier we get this failed fight where like he's walking across a road and a guy almost hits him with a truck, and then like he tries to drag him out and beat the shit out of him, but the tables just turn and he just gets the fuck kicked out of him, and it's just so like, this is all you know how to do, or this is the only way you know how to express yourself, and it hasn't even worked in this instance or whatever. And it's just like seeing him just covering up on the ground and it just fades to black or whatever. It's like, sad stuff. We also see his brief tryst with Cassie, Linda Cardellini. It's a weird one because it's almost a Lorraine situation where she's having to like aggressively pursue him and he's sort of reluctant, but it's like, yeah, okay, and like they're dating a little bit, and like
I think it's one of those things where like I think Alma does get in his head and he's like, I do need to have something of the cover. Sure. Like if she's figured this out, I need something. Again, like we're getting to the point where it's so hard to discuss the sexuality of these two because the one true relationship is with each other, and they do show sexual attraction to women, but so much of it does feel like they're using these women. Yeah, they're using these women for something that they're not, and it's like this whole idea between like there's sexual attraction and then there's romantic attraction, and the romantic attraction is between Ennis and Jack, and everything else is like I struggle to say like performative sexual attraction, but it is very much, it does feel like there is a performance going on there to kind of like wrestle down these feelings.
Well, like even when like if you think back to Ennis and Alma's wedding, he seems a little bit like phased out while they're doing the vows and everything, and like when he tells Jack about her up the mountain, you get this idea, you know, he's just been with her forever, and it's just like an inevitability that he will marry her at some point, and just seems very like just doing what you're supposed to, as it were. It's not that I don't think there's room in the movie for Cassie, it's just this is where I'm like, we are starting things when you should be wrapping up this story.
I know, because I do think the payoff of her is fantastic.
This is what I mean, it's like all of these things that they put in her, they are good, and like he's basically ghosted her and she's with someone else and she's like, yo, what the fuck, man?
Yeah, like you, I love you.
Yeah. Like,
I loved you.
Yeah, exactly. And like she even asked Junior, like, do you think he will settle down again or whatever? And it's like, we know he won't, but I just think in the interest of a slightly tighter narrative, we had one too many elements being introduced quite late on. It's not that the elements are bad, it's just they come so late. It's like, come on.
I think it's because Linda Cardellini does get the three scenes, which is more than like, because obviously Anna Faris and David Harbour are about to show up for their one scene. But Linda Cardellini gets the three scenes, and I think they all pay off each other. And it's this kind of like systemic, like, or this cumulative, like how much he's fucked his life up, or how much he's fucking other people's lives up by not doing this stuff. Because like he's fucked up Jack Twist's life, he's fucked up Alma's life, he's fucked up his daughter's life, he's fucked up Cassie's life. There's all these characters that because he cannot emotionally engage or like actually confront what's going on in his head, he's emotionally hurting these other people.
And he refuses. Junior asks to move in with him, potentially temporarily. But he's just like, nah, I'll never be home, and he's just like, yeah, bye, and she takes it like a champ, like with the little smile and everything. It's like, it's fine, but it's like just fully rejecting your daughter in that way. It's like he's lucky that Junior continues to go to him, I feel. But but like she's the oldest. It's that thing where it's like he's my dad. Yeah,
why wouldn't I go to him?
Hey, people and their fathers, man. This is, as you said, where Jack meets Randall Malone, who is just another nearby person. It's like at some sort of function, and they're both people in the community, whatever. And
there's an implication that they picked them up from the side of the road because their car's like broken down,
and they're both very like, oh, wives, huh, or whatever. And
both wives are ranting about how their husbands won't dance. The subtext is like they won't sexually please them or anything like that in certain ways. They won't dance with us. They won't engage with us physically. There's lots of looks between Randall and Jack at this point, and then Jack takes LaShawn for a dance, and we get this wonderfully like uncondensed like pure Anna Faris for about like 2 minutes.
Here's the accent work, here's me talking too much, it's so weird seeing these two show up so late in the movie. And like David Harbour, I guess, didn't get like a person that people know until like, I guess, Stranger Things. Like you would recognize him.
If you look at his Wikipedia page, it literally starts with Jim Hopper in Netflix series Stranger Things.
Yeah, but Anna Faris was like, well, we talked about it. Exactly.
She's lost in translation. She's done 3 scary movies at this point.
Yeah, which, you know, regardless of the quality, are known. It's just strange to see these recognisable people debut, 10-15 minutes before the end? It's like, oh, okay.
I want more Anna Faris showing up in, like, Oscar-nominated movies.
Yeah.
Because, like, she's good in Lost in Translation, and she's good in this.
Her filmography is stealth real good. You get the scene where Randall, like, he's like, oh, yeah, my boss, there's this cabin.
I've got use for cabin.
we could fish and drink. Maybe we could go there together. It's like, okay. And this comes immediately after, like, Ennis and Jack, in one of their camping things, he says something to the effect of, are you ever just walking around and you think someone just knows? And it's like, and then immediately you get this thing where Randall has, like, sussed out Jack upon first meeting him or whatever. And
but then you got that thing where, like, people who are know.
Oh yeah.
And like so much that, like, and it's so risky for both of them, and you can tell that this is ultimately what would be Jack's downfall, is maybe a brazenness or maybe a lack of subtlety in how he goes about it. Because I mean, obviously early on got the scene where, like, he goes into the bar and, like, offers to buy this guy a drink because he's the best damn rodeo clown he's ever worked with,
and the guy just, like, gives him the side eye and walks over to the other guys, and
so whispering, and then Jack runs away because, like, he's scared because he knows,
of course,
something terrible could happen.
Yes. On this same camping trip, like, when they're swapping stories, he does say how, like, oh, I've been sleeping with this lady, and, like, every time I go over there I think the husband's going to catch me, and it's like, well, like you said earlier, like, it's clearly the opposite, and he's talking about banging David Harbour while Anna Faris might find out. So the two finally have their angry, tearful breakup, and Ennis uses the phrase, well, he says, like, he blames Jack for making him like this, and, like, making him feel so lost and everything. It's just this, like, there's so much to unpack there with, like, putting blame on someone for your confusion, and it's just like, oh, if I'd never met you, I'd just be living this happy straight life, or I'm clearly not that happy or that straight, but whatever. Or maybe he is. Like, I think Heath Ledger has put it as if he'd never met Jack.
Probably would never done this.
Yeah, like, it's just about Jack for him. Like, he met a special person, you know, like, someone who he has that deeper, like, romantic, forever ever bond with, and it happens to be a man. Whereas Jack is dealing with much more of a life of an identity as a gay man that he must repress, whereas for Ennis it's like, you are my one person or whatever. But just, yeah, it's so good. Like, probably the best scene in the movie. Like, because you get the iconic lines of, I wish I could quit you, and
you got no fucking idea how bad it gets. I'm not you. I can't make it on a couple high altitude fucks once or twice a year. Yeah. You're too much for me, Ennis. You son of a horse and bitch. I wish I knew how to quit you. It, like, again, like, that whole thing becomes mimetic, but, like, just the couple of high altitude fucks is just this beautifully, like, lyrical, crass idea.
Yeah. And I think, was it the last time they saw it, the one where they're, like, swapping stories about, like, oh, I'm banging this lady. He says, sometimes I just miss you so much it hurts, or whatever. And just the two of them here, and, like, oh god, and again they pretty much almost fight, and you get that flashback to just this quiet, tender moment between them where, like, he's like, oh, are you sleeping standing up, and, like, just hugs him from behind, and it's just, like, so wholesome and nice. And then just a flashback. Like I said, it's almost jarring seeing how much younger they look, because you don't really track it that much that they are growing up over these 20 years. But when you see them side by side, this, like, here they are clean shaven and young and youthful, and here they are looking a bit more haggard and dressing different, and one of them's got a pervert mustache. It's really stark, and, like, Ennis reluctantly lets Jack hold him, but then Jack just has to watch him drive away, and it's just, I think that whole scene just sort of speaks for itself, and, like, there's not really much we could say here that would do more than they are doing in this scene. And
like, this is, Jake deserves his Oscar nomination for this scene alone. It's just, I think he's the less charismatic of the two,
but it's a different role. Like, the whole thing is centered around Ennis and how he deals with it all. And as you said, the last time they see each other, because Ennis receives word that Jack is dead, and he calls Lorraine, and she tells him
Jack was pumping up a flat on the truck out on a back road when the tyre blew up. The bead was damaged somehow, and the force of the explosion slammed the rim into his face, broke his nose and jaw, and knocked him unconscious on his back. By the time someone came along, he had drowned in his own blood. And she does it in this such short-clipped, rehearsed manner.
Yes, it feels very rehearsed. It feels overly elaborate, conveniently. This freak series of circumstances that I had to think about how it would happen, so that's how I know it all. But while she's telling him over the phone, we see a scene of three men beating the fuck out of Jake Gyllenhaal with a tire.
Yeah, and whether or not that is what Ennis is imagining happened, or whether or not that is the actual facts of the events, it's not exactly 100% clear.
He continually, it's not just that first story we tells him the haunting thing about his childhood. He's like, I don't want to die because of, or I don't want you to die, or, you know, all this is his constant fear that if we are found out, we will be killed, which may have happened, but I think there is an ambiguity to it, because it's like, is this what he's imagining really happened, or is she covering up and like...
I think it's pretty clear that like he was murdered. Well, I think the ambiguity is like, did it happen in this exact way? Is this thing we're being shown?
Well, like
the actual?
I know in the book or in the short story, it is implicit that he was murdered.
Yeah, like I think Ennis literally says like, and then he knew. And it's clear.
But the way they pull this, like Anne Hathaway says, she did 2 takes. One where she knows everything, that her husband was gay and had been having many affairs with many men, and one where what she's saying is factually true. And they used clips of both takes. And she herself says, I don't want to know what happened. I know Ang Lee knows, but I don't want to know, and I would rather just enjoy it as a member of the audience who doesn't know. And it is this thing that you can only achieve with the film medium, where you can have words being spoken that do not match with what you are seeing. You can't do that in a book, you can't do that in other stuff, and it's like, it is really powerful. And like, I think most people do end up with the idea that like he was murdered.
I think you can argue that, because I think just the way that it's so short and clipped and so rehearsed what the murder was, but also that they used what seems to me clips of her figuring out who Ennis is, where she goes like, I know you, you're the friend, I would have called you.
Yeah.
And like there's this like slight implicit nature to like, she was aware that he was going away to see a man multiple times a year, and it wasn't for fishing.
Yes.
And again, Anne Hathaway is so good in this scene, because there's so like, she's doing this on a room on her own on the phone, and there's so much subtext to everything that she's saying.
Do you know what it reminds me of? The scene in The Dark Knight Rises where her voice changes in the middle of a... Well, she does it a couple of times. There's at the beginning when she's like, oh, silly me, and then she like drops her act or whatever, and then later on in the bar when she flips between being like in command and then like shrieking like girlishly and everything, just that sort of, she has this side to her that she's able to draw on, and she does it in multiple movies, where you get this almost sinister, very in command like style to her, and it's like, I know she's being a bit robotic on purpose, but like there's this sort of, when throughout the film we see her being a bit more sort of happy-go-lucky, smiley, and here you see her just dour and just choosing her words and everything. It's like,
yeah, like she's so good. She should have been nominated for this. I'm still in my head I was like, this is after Devil Wears Prada, but no, this is the year before Devil Wears Prada, which is obviously like her breakout, but she's superb. She doesn't do enough kind of like serious stuff. Like if you look at her filmography, like that, she obviously has like fantastic performances in Devil Wears Prada is so singular. She's really good in Les Mis, even if I don't think Les Mis is the best. But then it's just other stuff, like she's in Alice Through the Looking Glass and Alice in Wonderland. She's in Serenity, that awful movie with a twist where it's insane. The Hustle is her latest movie. Like, I wish she did more. Like, she's good when she does like the lazy hangout movies. Like Love and Other Drugs is just charisma up the walls. But I want more of like leading performance, doing something that kind of like blurs the line between comedy and drama, because she's such a good dramatic actress, and she should do it more often.
So are we saying this movie should have been at least nominated, if not won, for director, picture, lead actor Heath Ledger, supporting actor Jake Gyllenhaal, lead actress Michelle Williams, supporting actress Anne Hathaway?
Yes, it should have had a nomination for supporting actor, but necessarily shouldn't have won. It should have won supporting actress for Michelle Williams, and Anne Hathaway should have also been nominated for supporting actress.
Sure, but we're saying like clean sweep for the big four, the film and the director.
Yeah, and I mean, it should have won cinematography as well.
Oh yeah, it's fucking beautiful, beautiful film.
Members of the Geisha, which is a gorgeous movie as well. Yeah, to be fair.
So she also mentions how half his ashes were dealt with here, and he wanted the other half went to his parents. He wanted them to be scattered on Brokeback Mountain, but knowing him, that may not even be a real place. And so Ennis goes to meet Jack's parents and offers to take the ashes, but his father is very like, no, they're going in the plot. And the acting here from the father is very like, I know and I don't approve, because they talk about how he had talked about bringing Ennis here to this ranch and like doing it up, and we'll
just come here and hang out and do up the ranch and then live in a little shack because we're just two best buds who love to spend time together.
Indeed, but he mentions how he brought another man up here, and we can infer that that was David Harbour, and maybe this is how...
Did he bring him up, or did he like say he was going to bring him up? Like he came by the previous summer and was like, I don't know if it's one or the other, because I think he came up with half-baked plans for this other person.
I potentially read it as he did bring David Harbour, and that might be how he got found out, is that he was too bold in his actions. Both parents seem keenly aware of the situation. The mother seems less disapproving.
I think that's the important thing. It's like Ennis's father is the one who's showing him a corpse of a man who lived with another man, whereas Jack's mother doesn't feel like she judges. Her reaction is like, do you want a cup of tea? Do you want to go to see his childhood bedroom?
I think for her it's like, this isn't conventional or like what I would choose, as it were, but I understand who you were to him. So whereas the father is like, seems very like, I'm not cool with this.
but I still think there's a remarkable, like, even for that age or for that era, that he doesn't chase him out of the house. No. He says he doesn't approve of it. He puts his foot down about the ashes, which is semi-understandable in terms of like, I want my son to be buried with the family plot, which you could quite easily say like, I don't want him anywhere near the rest of my family. He doesn't balk when he comes down with the shirts.
Well, yeah,
like we take his son's belongings.
Yeah, we get this scene where he does go up and explore the room, and he finds, so he's got this like open closet, wardrobe, cupboard, whatever, with all of his stuff, but then there's like a very narrow gap at the edge of it, and there's a bit poking out, and he pulls out their two shirts, the one that has his blood on it that Jack was wearing, and his own one that he lost up the mountain, and they had been arranged in such a way that Ennis's is inside of Jack, and he holds them both and he just smells them and just breaks down. And like, if there's any pretense that he's trying to act like, oh, we're just friends, when he first got there, when he comes down the stairs holding these two shirts with like barely held back tears in his eyes, it's like, there is no way of escaping. Like, this is the closest he comes to being like, yeah, admitting to anyone other than Jack that he is involved with him or whatever. And like, the mother like gets a bag for them and everything.
The shirt seemed heavy until he saw there was another shirt inside it. The sleeves carefully worked down inside Jack's sleeves. It was his own plaid shirt lost, he thought long ago, in some damn laundry. His dirty shirt, the pocket ripped, buttons missing, stolen by Jack and hidden here inside Jack's own shirt. The pair like two skins, one inside the other, two in one. He pressed his face into the fabric and breathed in slowly through his mouth and nose, hoping for the faintest smoke and mountain sage and salty sweet stink of Jack, but there was no real scent, only the memory of it, the imagined power of Brokeback Mountain, of which nothing was left but what he held in his hands.
Wow. I don't want to keep talking now, but yeah. So we do get a scene after this. I think this easily could have been the final scene in the movie, but Ennis is in a trailer park now. It seems he's just gotten there because he's like setting up the mailbox and everything. Junior comes by, now played by Kate Mara, and tells him she's getting married. And at first he's about to unroll the usual excuse, and he's like, oh, I don't know, I've got work and all that. But then he's like, but I think I can just tell them to find someone else. And she's, of course, very happy about that. And she goes on her way, and the film ends with him. He's got the shirts hanging on the inside of this cupboard. And also one of, I guess it's the first postcard. Yeah, there's a the postcard
in the short story, he goes out and buys one himself.
Oh, okay.
But this could quite easily be like the one that Jack sent. I think Jack does send one over that mountain.
The first one or something, but he has it pinned up, and the shirts are there, and they are hung the opposite way this time, where Jack's one is inside of Ennis's, and this was supposed to be Heath Ledger's idea, and I think it may not be present in the book, but
it's not explicit if it is.
Okay. And he says, Jack, I swear. Well, I say he says, he mumbles and just weeps and steps out of frame. And then that's the end of the movie. And
and the score swells up. The score is stupendous. It's Gustavo Santaolalla.
Wow.
I apologise deeply.
Yes. The guitar score throughout is incredible. The simplicity, the stripped back nature of just here's some acoustic guitar, and then a lot of the movie is quite silent. Like when he's exploring the bedroom, and it's just deadly quiet. It's just so haunting. But yeah, the music throughout is great. And how do you interpret that? I swear. Like, what is the end of that sentence? Because it's I swear ... clearly. Like, what does that mean? I think it's more like he never swore anything to Jack in life, and like I don't know, like if it was like if he's making a promise, whatever that promise is, maybe it's like I'm gonna be with the people I love. Because I feel like that's the whole thing, is like, because he says to his daughter, and Kate Mara's really good in that scene, right? He's going to be at her wedding, and he's been avoiding these kind of like the things he loves, and at the end of the day he does love his daughters, of course,
and he's making this renewed promise to Jack that like, I'm not gonna lose the people in my life who I love. I'm not gonna,
if you love someone, grab hold of them.
And I feel like that's kind of maybe what the implication is. But yeah, I love that it doesn't finish it. Like there is some final thought to that, but we don't get to hear it. It's
that's like for him. That's for them.
It's like the whisper at the end of Lost in Translation, but even less. Like, we cannot find out what that is.
Yeah. One of Daniel Day-Lewis's favourite scenes ever in a movie, apparently.
He called it out, I think, like, he won his SAG for There Will Be Blood about 5 days after Heath died, and I think he paused his speech to be like, this is one of the greatest pieces of acting that I've ever seen, in the middle of accepting an award for one of his performances.
Of it. Oh, well, yeah, for There Will Be Blood, but, you know, he's, like, the actor. Could they not find an actress for Jenny? Like, there's so much Junior. Maybe she's the favourite daughter or whatever, but it's just like, you see both of the girls quite a lot, and then once they hit a certain age, you get a sort of teenage Jenny, and then you get Kate Mara at the end here. It's just like, a teenage version of her, and then you see Kate Mara playing her at the end. It's just like...
I mean, it's not like there isn't a different Mara sister.
Yeah, was Rooney not there? Like...
was Rooney not available? Maybe Rooney wasn't interacting at that point.
But yeah, it's an understated ending, and it's beautiful, and you get the song playing at the end is the one that Jack was playing on his harmonica badly earlier on, and it's all just great, isn't it? And
I mean, I texted you and said, like, I've cried 3 times this movie. It's like crying at Alma, crying at Anne Hathaway telling the story of like how Jack maybe died, and then the scene on the mountain where Jack's like, can't quit you. It's great. It's important and good, and I think it's good when things are both important and good. You know, you have a lot of one or the other. like we've joked that like this stretch of 3 movies now are like quite intense movies, but they're also like probably like my favourite 3 stretch that we're going to be doing. Yeah, I adore this movie.
Yeah. I watched it again last night for this, and I was very tired, so I don't know if I just feel pretty cranky about how long it is versus I actually think it's too long, but even with me thinking it is too long, just some of the scenes that you get in the back half are just incredible. And
I'm looking at the UK box office, and I'm sad it never peaked above number 4 over here.
Cowards, every one of us.
I know.
Well, this has been intense. We've unpacked a lot of our stuff here. This has been a long one, Jesus Christ.
I know.
Yeah, so thank you, everyone. EnterTheRealWorld.com, SoundCloud.com/MikeandMatt. Like, listen, subscribe, comment, give your feedback, share your stories, your personal stories about Brokeback Mountain. Next week, though, we will be covering Children of Men, a different kind of intensity coming towards us.
Yeah, my favourite working filmmaker. Yeah, I don't think he's made a bad movie.
Yeah, well, there you go. We will explore that one next time. And goodbye, everyone. But first, I don't say goodbye.
Just, there will be movies.
Just there will be. I don't even need to ask. There will be movies. Bye, everyone.